Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really into the Krays, join our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London, where you will find stuff probably unavailable anywhere else. We're an established group with a large membership, and best of all, we're friendly. The link is in the YouTube description section.
My name is Leonard Ernest Reed. I was known by everyone who knew me as Nipper Reed. I was born in Nottingham on the 31st of March in 1925. During my working life, I was a policeman and rose to the rank of Chief Superintendent of the Metropolitan Police's Murder Squad. I led the investigation into the arrest and eventual conviction of the Kray twins and their firm in 1968 and 1969. Away from my police work, my passion was boxing, and I became a boxing administrator, a position I held for many years. Here is my story. Following on from the last episode, where we were talking about police disguise work and the various guises I used to catch villains, we continue it on a little bit further. Later in my career, for a short while, I became a man of the cloth. But perhaps one of my most successful appearances in my Paddington days was as a clerk in a betting shop. It was over a betting shop protection racket, directed at Nathan Mercado, who, as Sid Kiki, ran a chain of betting shops. He was a man who had one foot on the pavement and one in the gutter, because he was always said to be the man, something he denied to me, who fingered Jack Spot outside his flat off the Edgware Road for the slashing, which finally ended his career as one of the two kings of the underworld. He was also a good informer. In the summer of 1963, there were threats to petrol bomb his shop and those of other northwest London bookmakers. The team was headed by a man called Patrick Ball, who was known as the Professor because he was always smartly dressed and carried a rolled umbrella and briefcase. Twice they set fire to the shops of James Burge, a bookmaker from Acton who was then in his 60s. Looking back now, it seems incredible that the going rate for protection was £10 a week, and sometimes the price was open for negotiation. In fact, they were a small team operating on their own without any backup from bigger organizations such as Billy Hills. The Professor spoke to Burge and said he was taking over the manor and wanted a weekly payment. Burge asked, "What will you get out of a dump like this?" "Surely you can afford a £5," was the reply. Burge said he did not want to know, and a fortnight later, his shop was petrol bombed during the night. Sid Kiki and another bookmaker, Leslie Potter, were also being threatened. Both men resisted the pressure and came to see me separately, saying the man had a bleeding cheek by implying that he represented an element of organized crime. It was arranged that I should spend a few days in Kiki's shop at Shepherd's Bush as a clerk. I had on spectacles and ticker tape wound round my neck. The trouble was that it was a bit much for me. I was never very keen on racing itself, let alone betting. And that day was a Saturday when the Northumberland Plate, the Pitman's Derby, a handicap which attracted a lot of betting, was run. There were also meetings at Newmarket, Windsor and Worcester, 24 races in all. It was a nightmare. Kiki was very good, keeping up the pretense that I knew what I was doing and not complaining when I pulled too hard and broke the ticker tape. The professor came into the shop after the last race. Kiki was a little Jewish fellow with a good deal of bottle. He was all ready for this man. Remember, he'd more or less thrown out the professor, and now with me, he had the backup. Instead of doing what had been arranged and asking questions such as, how much will it cost, and what will I have to do, so that it could be clear evidence with me listening, Kiki started shouting, "You can fuck off. I'm not having any of this. I just had to make my arrest and hope we had enough evidence." In fact, the professor pleaded guilty and received 6 years imprisonment, and the other two involved got 3 years apiece. One occasion when my disguise proved rather too successful was when I was an undercover man buying a lorry load of whiskey from some thieves. The plan was that when we were all together in the warehouse, I would give a signal to other officers and then be allowed to make a dash for freedom when the raid began. To make it look absolutely genuine, one officer was detailed to chase me, but unfortunately, in the squad was also a new detective who did not recognize me and had not been briefed. He took off with the plant chaser and soon outstripped him. When he was gaining on me, I thought it was time to surrender and ran into the garden of a nearby house so I would not be seen giving myself up. I tried to signal to the officer that I was one of his own, but it was no use. He fancied himself as a rugby player, tackled me just above the knees, and I landed in a stagnant ornamental fish pond. I was not best pleased, although I soon realized it was no fault of the young officer. I was even less pleased when the officer who was to have chased me arrived in time to pull me out and, seeing me, burst into laughter saying, "If that's what you get for going undercover, leave me out." On the 8th of August in 1963, the biggest theft the world had then known went off. The night train from Glasgow to London was stopped at the remote Brigido Bridge, Cheddington, in Buckinghamshire. A gang of armed thieves coshed the driver, smashed their way into the high-value package coach, and stole 120 mail bags. The contents were estimated to be worth over £2.5 million. Even now, the great train robbery has a certain romanticism about it, which is not attached to the later and bigger raids such as the Security Express and Brinks-Mat robberies. There had been thefts from trains before in recent years, particularly on the London to Brighton line, but these had been relatively small affairs. First reports of the Cheddington theft were vague, but, as the day wore on, it became clear that this was a major robbery. Buckinghamshire was one of the smallest of the county forces, and the Chief Constable, Brigadier Cheney, quickly realized he did not have the manpower at his disposal to deal with such a major incident. He used the facility that was available to all provincial constabularies. He called in Scotland Yard. Officers from Scotland Yard had been made available from 1907, when the then Home Secretary, Herbert Gladstone, wrote to the Commissioner saying he felt that it was desirable that the services of a small number of detectives should be available for inquiries in difficult and important criminal cases committed outside the Metropolitan Police District. It then fell to the officers of Central Office, New Scotland Yard, to take on this responsibility. As the majority of cases they investigated were murders, they soon became known as the Murder Squad. It consists of 10 chief superintendents in charge of squads of men who are committed to investigating a variety of criminal cases. These range from extradition and fugitive offender cases, banknote forgery and coinage offences, bribery and corruption, international lotteries and crimes relating to government departments. There is no question then that these experienced investigators are simply sitting around waiting for a telephone call from a provincial or overseas force. They are well occupied with their daily responsibilities. What there is in force is a rota system with 3 on standby, awaiting call-out. Being one of the 3 was known as being in the frame, and as a call was taken, then the next one moved up a place. Number 1 had a suitcase ready, packed with a current passport in case of an overseas job, and the famous murder box. It meant that officers had to be available 24 hours a day and ready at very short notice to go anywhere in the world. The current number 1 was Gerald MacArthur, who had only recently been appointed to the squad and who, although he had considerable experience in all manner of investigations, including murder, while serving in various divisions of the Met, had never been appointed to assist a provincial force whilst on the murder squad. He chose as his assistant an old colleague of mine from Paddington, Jack Pritchard. Their role was an advisory and directory one, as was that of any member of the murder squad. Although this was standard procedure, it did not satisfy the press or the public. Why, it was asked, were only 2 men detached from the Met to solve the world's greatest robbery? In turn, it was decided to supplement MacArthur and Pritchard with a larger team. I was a part of it. Aylesbury, where the inquiry was based, throbbed with activity, speculation, rumour, and excitement. The world's press swarmed everywhere like mayflies on a warm summer's afternoon. It was impossible to walk 2 yards or go for a sandwich and a half-pint of beer without being accosted by a reporter or photographer. Of course, this was completely understandable. This was world news. Every snippet of conversation or chance remark could be turned into the latest headline, and anyone leaving the headquarters was the object of a battery of flashbulbs, on the off chance he might be someone interesting. This was the first time I had seen at close quarters the infighting and backbiting which went on in the higher echelons of the police. Each officer wanted some of the glory from this, the world's greatest robbery. Each wanted to be seen as the instigator of this or that line of inquiry, preferably when it had turned out to be a successful one. More senior detectives visited Aylesbury than any scene of crime before and probably since. They all gave notice of their arrival to the reporters and made sure their best side was showing when the cameras clicked. Every senior officer was out to make a name with his arrests and have his photograph in the papers. All gave short, crisp quotes, suggesting that they were really overlording the operations, and then shortly afterwards, they were driven back to London. Through all this, Gerald MacArthur maintained an air of unruffled equanimity. He knew who was really in charge. Unfortunately, the record has never given him any of the credit for the magnificent job he did. Few members of the general public realized that he was the man at the helm. I was put to work with an Inspector Richard Chitty, who later became a Deputy Assistant Commissioner, to organize the control room and introduce the yard system. Dick Chitty was a master of this. Within a couple of days, the production line system was fully in operation, and I was looking for a chance to get out into the field as quickly as possible. The Great Train Robbery was a job which had been hawked like a film script around the underworld for some time. The blueprint had been carefully worked out and had been offered to a number of suitable clients. It had been on offer so long that when it happened, a number of people were not surprised. It was well known at the yard that an Irishman was responsible for planning robberies and then selling them on to the perpetrators. The first of these was at Ericsson's telephones in Beeston in Nottingham. This was the first big hijack after the war. He went on to plan many others, and detectives would say, "That's got Mickey's stamp on it," because the planning was meticulous. Whilst I was at Paddington, there was one job he gave me. We never met, but he either knew or had heard of me, and we had a series of telephone conversations. I was never quite sure why he blew the whistle, but I suspect he had not been paid for the plan for this particular job. It was a nice job, really. Each week, money was collected from an office block in Eastbourne Terrace by a GPO van. Mickey told me there would be a Ford Zephyr motor car and 4 people in it, and another bloke at the bus stop and so on. When the people came out with the loot, the men in the Zephyr would attack them, and the man at the bus stop would be a backup helper. It was a perfectly simple operation to mount, and when the raid was scheduled to go off, there I was standing in my shirt sleeves on the steps of the office block having an argument with my undercover police detective girlfriend, Betty Reed. 2 of my men were the office workers there to hand the money over to the GPO men. Sure enough, as the exchange was made, the Ford car appeared with 4 men in it, drove up and then slowed down. After the exchange was made, it roared away up the road. We arrested the only one left, and the man at the bus stop who had a long steel bar up his sleeve, and got 5 years for conspiracy to rob. When I got back to the Nick, Mickey was on the phone in a rage. "You fucked it up completely." I said, "What are you talking about? We had everything laid on. They just didn't stop." "No," he said, "of course they didn't fucking stop. These 2 blokes of yours, the ones in the waistcoats who handed over the cash." "Yes," I said, wondering how he knew they were my chaps. "They came out of the office. The real ones never do that." It was an example of how meticulous his planning was. He had obviously detailed in his plan that the office workers handed over the cash and went straight back to their duties. The fact that they did not alerted the robbers, and the job was off. I'm sure from all the information I had that he drew up the plan for the great train robbery. But it was Bruce Reynolds who honed, polished and fine-tuned it. I don't think he devised it. It had been on the shelf and available for anyone who wanted to take it on, but he did a lot of research on it. He joined a fishing club, took photographs, went to Euston to see how the coupling on hydraulics worked. I can remember standing on the embankment at Brigido Bridge and realizing what a perfect place it was for the unloading operation. Looking around, there was only one building in sight, a farmhouse, the telephone wires to which had been cut. Then, a short walk down the track was a white flag resting on an overturned barrow. This was the signal for the driver to stop the train so that the high-value package carriage was precisely above the embankment on the bridge. This had been separated from the rest of the train, leaving the sorters, who might otherwise have been a problem, wondering what the delay might be, a mile down the track. The exercise had not only involved the uncoupling of the train, but the disconnecting and reconnecting of the vacuum pipe controlling the braking system. I have always believed it to have been a perfectly planned and well-executed operation. The only flaw was the gratuitous violence meted out to Jack Mills, the train driver. There have been a number of theories about a sinister and mysterious Mr. Big, rather like Steve McQueen in the film The Thomas Crown Affair, who masterminded the affair, but who was never caught. I discount this. There also was a story that one of the friends of the Krays, who actually came from South London, was involved, but whether he put up money, I don't know. I believe that the mastermind as such was Reynolds, with the brilliant Gordon Goody as the quartermaster sergeant, the number 2. An operation of this size needs financing, and the money for it was provided by the City Gent job at London Airport in 1962. This was a robbery alleged to have involved Gordon Goody, Bruce Reynolds, Charlie Wilson, Roy James and some others. Wilson and Goody were charged and acquitted, whilst Mickey Ball, who pleaded guilty, received 5 years imprisonment. Now the planning for the big one could go ahead. It was another example of fine planning that Leatherslade Farm had been selected as a temporary hideaway, and discipline over the job had been very strictly observed. I believe Gordon Goody was the man who kept the troops under control. Before the job, he could do this, not only because of his forceful personality, but by constantly referring to the rewards on offer when the caper was finally pulled. I believe it was when, back at the farm, the team tore open the mailbags and found they had netted £2.25 million that they realized they had hit a jackpot beyond their hopes. Discipline went to the wall after that, and from being a well-drilled and regimented body, the robbers reverted to type, and once more became individuals blinded by wealth, each one eager to go off and spend it for himself. They were not helped by the fact that MacArthur put out an announcement that he believed the robbers were still within a 30-mile radius of Brigido Bridge. Leatherslade Farm was about 27 miles away. Then, when the friend of a neighboring farmer circled the area in a plane, they really thought the game was up, and the exodus from the farm was rapid and frenzied. All these things led to a breakup of the tight control which had been exercised by the leaders. The belief spread that it was only a matter of time before the farm was raided, and, as a result, the team began to split up, taking with them suitcases filled with money. There has also been a theory that there was a Judas, someone who was meant to go to Leatherslade Farm and set fire to it, destroying all trace of its previous inhabitants, but who failed to carry out his task. One story was that a client of Brian Field, the solicitor's clerk involved, had been paid to burn it. I don't believe that. I was at the farm almost immediately it was found, and whilst there were 2 vehicles there from which petrol could have been siphoned, there were no inflammable materials round about to which anyone could have easily put a match. It was fascinating to watch the yard's painstaking fingerprint expert, Maurice Ray, at work. There had been about 15 men holed up there, eating, sleeping, playing games, going to the lavatory. And yet they had left really no fingerprints. Had it been their intention to have the place burned down, then there would have been no need to worry about prints. Consequently, one would expect to have found them on door panels, light switches, bathroom fittings, the walls, everywhere. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. That brings this episode to an end, but I'll be continuing with the Great Train Robbery in the next part. I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you there soon.
Leave a like and subscribe.